Brian. I'm a junior at Souhegan High School. I enjoy playing hockey, and yeah, Souhegan's a pretty good school.
Hi, I'm Kate Hollister. I'm a sophomore here at Souhegan, and I play soccer for the team here now.
I'm Katie Ostrold. I'm a junior, and I'm on our crew team and involved with the theater club.
I'm Lindsay Evans. I'm a senior here. I am also a part of the crew team and also involved a lot in music.
I'm Katie Janikopoulos. I'm a sophomore, and I'm on the field hockey, softball, and am in the theater club.
Hi, I'm Matt Zipchak. I'm a sophomore, and I do the school baseball team.
My name is Ryan Hill. I'm a junior, and I play baseball, and I really love Souhegan.
My name is Mitch Graney. I'm a junior. I play soccer in the spring. I alpine ski race in the winter, and I'm one of our community council representatives.
Athletic group.
So, I know we're going to hit various topics. Should we start right off with some of our PACE work, project-based learning? Is that a good place to begin?
Or questions, yeah.
Yeah, or questions, sure.
So talk about PACE or performance tasks and assessments. Some of you might not have actually had PACE tasks. Tell me what you agree with.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about PACE testing. So one of the big PACE testing that we did was in the spring of our sophomore year, and what we did is we examined a lab using lizards, and so we were given a task, and I'm not sure exactly what the task was, but it was something along trying to identify evolution and natural selection. Thank you. Natural selection. Based on doing designing a certain test to do and collect data using cards. And after we had designed this, we were actually shown a video where a professional scientist explained his test, and we had to examine the differences between the two tests, pros and cons between the two, some of the differences, and then we ended by writing a lab report on this test.
Yeah.
Is this the famous Anolis lizard?
Yes, correct.
And the other thing about that was that it was a mix of when we actually did our lab part of it, we had to work with a group of 3 other students that was randomly picked, and then the paper was our own individual. So it was a nice balance of collaboration and doing that skill, but also being responsible for your own individual work and sort of pulling your weight in it, which I think is really important.
Yeah, and one of the great things about having the performance assessments is that it's more of a real world situation than if you get a written test. Because say in math you'll get a written test, there'll be a right answer, wrong answer, you get it or you don't. But if you do a performance assessment, even with math, we've had to do they gave us in pre-calc, which for me was my junior year, they gave us this situation. It's okay, you have to come up with a function to kind of create this box thing. And you had to work with a group and do that. And the great thing about that is that there's no one right answer and one wrong answer. Because in life, really, there's not really one right answer and wrong answer. There are multiple different ways to get to an answer, different ways to do it, and the performance assessments really allow us to see that. So it's not just black and white like a regular written test is.
Yeah, I really like it because I don't consider myself a great test taker. So I like doing the project-based assessments because I feel like I can apply those skills, and it's in a little more of a relaxed environment than being thrown into the test environment, which can be kind of scary.
Yeah, it tests more your problem-solving skills versus your knowledge-based skills, is what I would say. Which at Souhegan we have ALEs and we have 7, and one of those is knowledgeable person, which would be more of the test-style questions and complex thinker. And then we also have skilled information processor, effective communicator, responsible citizen, and those all play into more of the problem-solving side of the testing equation.
Yeah, another benefit that I was able to see by taking the same PACE assessment with the lizards is you're given a kind of a pool of data that you had to take from that, and then when you acquired that data, you had to then take the extra step of asking yourself what that data meant and how it applied to how you to what you were learning. So I think that in a sense is different than just your standard test taking, where maybe you're just memorizing something rather than actually applying it to something much bigger.
We had another PACE assessment that we did was, which was a bioethics unit, so we all got like, whether it was genetics or cloning or eugenics or whatever, so they were sort of controversial topics, and then we had to, like, we were divided into groups and we had to debate about them, and I know the biggest thing for me and I think for us was that you had to take like your opinion out of it, and just talk about the facts and the pros and cons, which I think is a really important skill for us to learn, to be able to talk about stuff without it being completely based on like either our political opinion or whatever. And so I think that was a really good skill, as well as getting up there and having like a formal debate that's timed and you have to be able to make your point in a minute and be concise and factual, which is a really good thing to learn how to do.
We just finished that, and I really liked it, and I did DNA databases, so it's kind of a controversial topic, and I like to hear the different sides of it because there were a lot of points brought up that I never really considered, and I thought that that was a good way to hear about those points and to consider them to put into your argument.
Are there other topics you want us to talk about?
How does it compare to what you're doing during the rest of your class time? So do you feel as if you're receiving instruction that's building towards the project task, or do you feel as if you're learning in one way and then this is a different experience that takes what you've learned but just applies it in a new way?
I think mostly all of the classes that I've had, I feel like Souhegan really teaches to the performance assessment way. It's not like they just stand there and give you information and then have you do this performance task. It's really integrated into the whole system. So like we do presentations all the time. I know I'm in the ethics seminar class, and in the philosophy part of it, we have to do presentations all the time where you're actually teaching the class the information. You do the research on it and then you present it, and then like you have to make handouts and everything. And that's how the class learns. A lot of the information is by you, and obviously the teacher, he's really involved in it too, just to make sure like we're getting everything across, that we understand everything. But the performance tasks are definitely incorporated into the curriculum for all of the classes that I've been in.
Even right now, like I just finished a big like performance project that I just got back yesterday, and like it was a combination of, we had to like write an essay, make an art piece, do a bunch of different things. So not only was it a more creative performance assessment, but it was also like across the board. So you know, there are people who are really, really strong writers. Like I consider myself a pretty strong writer, but like we had to do a painting, which is not something that like I normally do. But then there are people who are opposite. So like that's the wonderful thing about Souhegan, is that if you can make a beautiful piece of artwork that conveys the story you're reading, that's just as important as being able to write a good essay, which is something that I think other schools don't have.
Right, and teachers do prepare you for these assessments you're doing. You know, we bring it back to the anolis lizard PACE assessment. Well, leading up to that, we learned tons about natural selection, evolution, and you know, Darwin and his theories. Like we learned all that stuff, which is more of the knowledgeable person stuff that you learn in test. And then we use that to apply to design the experiment, to test the experiments, to compare to, you know, professional experiments. So it's, you know, although that's not really what's being tested, we're still getting all of those knowledge-based skills from the teacher. And it's not like a lecture either. You know, you're doing, you know, labs or watching videos or, you know, doing research. So I would say we're definitely well prepared for the assessments when they come up.
So if I remember the anolis lizard task well enough, the legs on the lizards on one island ended up longer than the legs on the lizards on the
I
other
believe
island.
that's
Something
right.
along those lines.
Yeah, so what did you think of that? What did that prove to you, if anything?
I don't remember the lab well enough. Being completely honest, it was last year. Well, it was interesting because we were taught like multiple different, I guess, things you can look at to signify evolution. So yeah, these specific lizards, they would have different sized legs based on like the different areas that they would traverse. So the like lizards that would live on the ground where there was no predators, they would have like, it was either short legs or longer legs. I don't know. But the lizards that had to like live in the bushes, they would have to have like different legs to like grab onto the branches. I don't know. It was something like that. But so the lizards were like moved from one island to another with predators, and the lizards that used to like live on the ground had to move up onto the bushes to avoid predators. And over multiple generations, that changed their leg length. So within just like 1 or 2 generations, we could see evolution and see. So like we knew what we were looking for, and then once we saw what we were looking for, we were able to like analyze that and like specifically say what we found and what it meant.
It's amazing that you remember it in that detail. You said you did it last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing. So if I were to ask, what's the important learning that you got from that task, what would it be? If you had to choose one thing?
Just the ability to like design an experiment and the ability to think for myself. So I really like PACE assessments because you're not given like incredibly strict guidelines where only like maybe some people can succeed well and others would, struggle a little bit. You're given your own freedoms and your own like decision-making abilities, so you can kind of tailor it to what you need as a learner.
I know for me what I liked that was interesting is that I think genetics is really interesting, and what I got the most out of that is how quickly we, like most species, and I mean we do too, adapt to the things that are happening around us and how quickly things can change, and you don't even think about that's being a thing that they would need to change their leg length because they go from living on the ground to into the bushes. I would never have thought of that, but that's a really amazing thing that their bodies just do that because they need to survive. Like that is something that at least for me, I didn't think about, and now that you see it all the time, you see it with us and with all sorts of animals, which I think is really interesting.
So you also recently took the new SAT, right?
Yes.
How was that experience, and if you can, any comparisons there between that and what you're doing with PACE?
I mean, I know for me, I'm much more of a performance person, and maybe because I go to Souhegan, or maybe that's just like who I am, but I think that like for me, the SAT was really, really daunting, which like was one of those things that, was a little bit terrifying. But I think that during performance assessment, I've learned a lot more like problem solving skills and like being able how to like creatively get through all the questions and do that things, maybe not in most traditional ways, but in a way that works better for me. So that was, it was a little scary, but
yeah, I can attest to some, like, because I'm a senior, I had to apply to college, taking the SATs multiple times to, submit to schools and stuff. And sure, like, I can get a good score on that to submit to colleges, but it's not like a real, it doesn't really show who I am as a student. It shows how much I know about the stuff that just happens to be on that test. And so I really like the performance assessments because I feel like they're just a lot more true to real life. Because I mean, rarely in real life are you gonna get handed a piece of paper that has a problem on it. It's like, solve this without any help. Like, you can't talk to people, you can't look anything up. So I feel like the performance assessments really allow us to get into that real life situation. And I feel like the SATs are kind of just the what do you know kind of thing, which is kind of, if you don't happen to know what's on that test, then it's not really fair.
It's the hardest performance assessment.
yeah, I agree.
No, I said what is.
Oh,
Oh, you're saying the SAT is.
Well, I guess it's not a performance assessment, but it was the hardest assessment
What is
I've
the
ever taken.
So I think the hardest one that we have to do is our senior year, we have to do a senior project, and it's a year-long research-based project. You pick a topic, you create your essential questions, you have to contact outside experts, and then you have checkpoints along the way to make sure like you have research done stuff. You have to create an applied piece, and then in May, you have to do a 20 to 25 minute presentation that's open to the public. So that's a graduation requirement, so you have to pass in order to graduate. And I definitely think that is the hardest one that I've done.
So I'm going to talk about what the applied piece is.
Oh yeah, so.
Can you talk about your specific one?
Yeah, so my topic, I'm really interested in kind of, not law, but, criminal psychology and stuff. So I'm looking at violent crimes and what in society is causing them. So I started out last year in my psychology class, we had an FBI special agent come in to talk about criminal psych and stuff, and I found that really interesting. And I decided then that that's kind of what I wanted to base my project off of. So I was using him as my outside expert, so Rachel, who's in the back, and we actually went to the FBI base in Bedford and met with him and then another special agent. So we talked about stuff and talked about criminal psych and stuff like that. So he was my outside expert, and we also visited the Nashua Police Department just yesterday, 2 days ago, to get more information. And then outside of that, I created essential questions. So my essential question, big overall, is what are the key triggers that are causing violent crimes? And then I created sub-questions under that, like what historically have been problems, what can be done about it, what has been, changed over the years and stuff. And then for my applied piece, I'm making a presentation kind of like class, I'm doing the presentation to the Law and Justice seminar class, which is, it's a class that only seniors take. So I talked to the teachers like, hey, I want to do an applied piece I want to do my applied piece as a presentation to the class and then kind of have a discussion around that. And then using that discussion, we're going to talk about, what can be changed to, stop violent crimes from happening. And I'm taking that and the suggestions that they make during that discussion and then using that to answer one of my last questions for my sub-essential questions. So yeah, it's a pretty large task and I have to take all of that and do a presentation at the end. But other people, for their applied pieces, I know someone is making clothes out of unconventional items. Some people are making documentaries. It's endless, the possibilities that you can have, and it's really cool because it allows you to research into something that maybe you haven't been able to study in school, but that you're really interested in. So I think it's a really cool opportunity. It's kind of daunting at first, but it's definitely really cool.
And earlier the question was asked, are we prepared for these assessments? What is teacher involvement? As part of the senior project process, you have a mentor who is one of the teachers at the school, so they help you go through, make sure you're on track, make sure everything's going okay. And Lindsay said that we have to do a 20 to 25 minute presentation. Well, we do presentations in class all the time. So by the time you get to senior project, doing a 25-minute presentation in front of the public is no big deal because you've done so many. And we also have exhibitions sophomore and junior year. So junior year, you have to do a research project and write a paper on it, which we're getting. I think that's being released next week or something.
Yeah,
so
rolling it out.
That's coming up for juniors. And then sophomore year, we do a Division I exhibition, which is where we collect different pieces of work from both freshman and sophomore year. And then your parents, some of your friends, your advisors, and another teacher all meet together and you talk about some of your strengths you have, some of your weaknesses, what are your passions, what things do you like to do outside of school, extracurriculars, and then you guys kind of discuss what's the path forward, how are you going to build on your weaknesses and how are you going to apply your strengths and continue your passions throughout the next 2 years and then even past that into post-grad. So that's a cool little thing we do sophomore year to kind of look forward to the future.
Yeah, I think that's really important because it's, at least for me, it was really actually very authentic for me and who I am as a learner. I think that a lot of times when we do reflections, sometimes people don't really take the time to actually reflect about themselves as a learner. It's not, but this, at least for me, and I think one of the reasons that works so well is because it's very authentic and genuine to who you are as a learner and what your actual strengths and weaknesses are and ways to sort of work on that is reasonable and attainable. It's not just you being oh yeah, I'm gonna get A's. That is not an actual way to fix or grow as a learner. So I think one of the reasons this exhibition works so well is because it's actually very catered to you and is realistic with the goals that you set. And it's it's a really good environment because all the people that are there want you to succeed and want to help you be a better learner. So it's also like one of those things that for me was really good, because it's not like people are sitting there like, you need to do better, you're not doing well. It was just like a nice growing experience. So I think it's a really important thing that we do.
I have a two-part question. Is it hard when you first came in as a freshman or whenever you guys transferred to actually get accustomed to this new way of being assessed and or learning in classroom? And then my second part is, now that you've kind of been part of it, and I hear very loudly and clearly that you all love this school, Saginaw, yay. Could it be applied, do you think, to any other school in the state? Or do you think there are unique things going on in this school that allows it to work?
Well, I think there is a little bit of the aspect of that. It is unique in the way that it's run, because by the time, so the middle school is very different. It is nothing like Souhegan. I mean, it is very rigid by the rules, whereas Souhegan is a lot more free. But by the time you get here, everyone, all of the sophomores, juniors, and seniors have already experienced it for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So they really kind of exemplify the ideas that are behind Souhegan. So you can look up to them and see, what they're doing, how they handle the responsibility, because we're given a ton of responsibility, and they give us the benefit of the doubt, and they give us these things, and if we do something wrong with them, if we abuse the privileges, then they'll take them away, but they assume that we'll do right by them. And so when you get here your freshman year, you can see how well this works, and you're like, I want to be like these people. I want to be like the seniors who, can be a part of all of these different groups and stuff. So yeah, I think it would be maybe a little difficult to, have it in other schools just to get it started. But I think that students really enjoy it, because we've had students come from multiple different schools, and when we tell them about the school, like we call our teachers by their first names. We have student council. We have all of these groups. Like we have a group called the Ethics Forum, which organizes. It's a student organization, and this year we organized a philosophy conference with over 1,000 students, and it was all student run. And we tell that to students, and they're like, "Wow, like that's awesome that you get these privileges." So I think students would really enjoy having the opportunities that we have. So I feel like it definitely could be implemented in any school. I mean, we had Souhegan High School from Rochester help us with the philosophy conference this year, and they are slowly getting into that, kind of implementing the same kind of rights and responsibilities that we have. So yeah, I think it definitely would be possible to put into other schools.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, if it's going to be implemented into another school, one of the reasons that it works so well here is because you don't work here and you don't go here if you don't fully believe in the way that we teach and learn. And there are people that don't like, aren't more independent learners. So I feel like if it's going to be implemented into another school, you gotta be all in. And everyone here is all in and like totally believes in performance assessments and independent learning, because at least for us, we think that that is the best way to get an education. So I feel like if it's gonna be implemented in another school, they gotta be sort of just maybe not dive in, but everyone here is so like gung-ho and yes about the way that we learn. So if that's gonna happen, then they have to feel that way, I think, too.
I think the one catch to it is there has to be an understanding to why you do it. Because when I first came here freshman year, our grading system is on a 4 scale. So if you get a 4, it means you exceeded the teacher's expectations. If you get a 3, you meet the teacher's expectations. If you get a 2, you approach the teacher's expectations. And instead of failing, we have a 1, which means you did not meet the teacher's expectations whatsoever. And when I first came here freshman year, I hated it. I thought it was awful. I didn't think it made sense. I think the fact that teachers were only asking students to meet an 85% was them saying, hey, you did what I wanted, I didn't think was acceptable. I thought teachers should be expecting students to know all the material or to understand all the material, do the best they could. And then I would say at the end of my sophomore year during the exhibition, I realized why we have the ALEs we do, and it's not because you're learning to get a 4 to exceed the teacher's expectations, you're learning to understand the skill, which based on the rubrics we're given, we know whether we're being tested on how effectively are we communicating, do we know the material, are we able to process and understand the information we're given? And until I started analyzing how I was in each of those skill areas, I didn't get why we did it that way. And so after being, I'm pretty sure this is like some fourth panel for some of us. So after talking to you guys, a lot about it, and I've been to a conference up in Maine where we met with a lot of other schools with the same philosophy as ours. It's actually the Coalition of Essential Schools. It was really cool to hear, how it's being implemented elsewhere because we are a public school, we do have a more traditional sense compared to some of those schools. But after understanding why we do what we do, I appreciated it much more than freshman year because I just didn't have that same understanding of why we do the ALEs and why we grade on a 4 scale.
You talk about how, I apologize for the term, but during sophomore year, you get together with teachers, parents, and talk about strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
and you're sort of plan for the next 2 years. Is there another time between sophomore year and when you graduate when you're having that same sort of team get together on strengths and weaknesses planning, or is that the big moment?
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
much
I
it.
mean, throughout the whole time, because of so the ALEs are the academic learning expectations, which are, knowledgeable person, effective communicator, complex thinker and stuff. And I'm just thinking like from a mathematics point of view, because that's the easiest example to use. Each test will have a knowledgeable person grade, an effective communicator grade, and a complex thinker grade. And each question will be broken down, like this question is worth, 2 KP, knowledgeable person points, and then maybe 1 complex thinker point. And you'll get points for each subject area. And so when you get the test back, you don't just get, a 94% on the top of your test, and you're like, okay, cool, what did I get wrong? You can actually look through each expectation and see, okay, I had the knowledgeable person, I can do that, but complex thinker, maybe I had like a 2.5 out of 4. And so then looking at that, what areas you need to work on. And by the time you get to your junior and senior year, like you can kind of self-direct yourself with that, and the Division I roundtable really helps you kind of see where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and then that can kind of guide you to, maybe you should look out for that complex thinker grade through your classes for the next 2 years. So there's not really, you don't get together with your teachers again. I mean, sometimes you can go to a teacher and say, hey, like, what do I need to work on? And you can do it that way, but it's a lot of self-direction. So the Division I exhibition is really the only time that we like officially get together and talk about it.
I know for me though, I have continuous dialogue all through the year, like with my teachers about what's going on, and I know that I'm not the only one that does that. Most kids here do that, so it's sort of always, every once in a while checking in, how am I doing, what, am I understanding this type of thing. So, and that's something that through Division I and just through being at this school that you learn how to do. Because what I found is that, no one's gonna sit there and hold your hand, but if you come to them and you're like, I need help, or I don't know this, or I'm not sure that I'm getting this, they will literally help you to the ends of the earth. And I think that's the biggest thing that I realized, that no, they're not gonna come to you though and be like, hey, you didn't pass in your paper, and like, I'd really like it if you did. Like, no, but if you were like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling so much, I need help, then they are there like 100%. And so I feel like it's sort of, well, we don't have the formal get-togethers, it's a constant like back and forth with them, making sure you know what's going on.
So I want to be respectful of these guys' time. As you can tell, I'm sure they're missing desperately their classes that they're being pulled from right now because they love it so much. So maybe we can just throw it out there if there are any sort of burning questions, any last thoughts?
I just, if we can just take the time, several of you haven't actually said too much, and what would be the most important thing that you think we should know about what you're doing in this high school, and particularly in relation to PACE?
I definitely feel like, although we might have some standard paper and pencil tests, there are a lot of other types of assessments, whether it's PowerPoint presentations, team tests in math, other group work, making movies for us sophomores this year. There's a lot of different ways that we're tested, and also like Souhegan doesn't base learning just on knowing facts. most teachers will allow you to redo work until you actually understand and know what you were learning. So some kids will definitely understand it better and faster than others, but teachers will understand and allow you to redo work until you get it to where you want it and until you understand it.
Yeah, I think the school is really good for helping me like become like a person who I want to be when I'm older. So like instead of like a standard paper test, like I'm really being put into real world situations. So I feel like it's gonna help me better as a person. So like if I do like not so good on a math test, like it's my fault. I need to go and figure out a solution to it. So I think Souhegan is a really good way to like it's really helping me for my later life. Like I feel like I don't know, like in a real life situation instead of just like doing a test, passing it, forgetting it the next day. Like I like not just memorizing things. I'm like going to know it for the rest of my life kind of thing.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I think we were going to say maybe collect ourselves because I know we came rushing in, and so a few moments.